Good day, everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss the data collection technique for quantitative research. Let us take note that data refers to any facts or figures that are correlated or collated with the intention of being presented, interpreted, and analyzed. These data that we can gather are in numerical since we are talking about quantitative data. Let's remember that data may be in qualitative or quantitative. In practical research too, we are off to focus only on the quantitative data. Let's look back again on the difference between the qualitative and the quantitative data. In the qualitative data that describes characteristics or quantities, and the qualitative data usually deals with language. On the other hand, our focus for practical research too, which is the quantitative data, is quantifiable or measurable. And this data in the quantitative research deals with numbers. Looking into this, the quantitative data appears to be measurable, numerical, and related to a metrical system. Something that we are able to use, we can able to see, we can able to observe, and these measurements can be obtained through the use of measuring devices, observations, or experimentation. So in order for us to gather this data, we need to have an instrument that we are going to utilize. In collecting data, in quantitative research, there are things that we need to consider. Let's take note that research instruments are designed to measure the same variables among the participants. Whatever it takes, whatever trials we make, or how many trials we make, it will be the same variables that we are going to measure. The data collection is often the most expensive and time-consuming part of conducting research. Of course, we are going to give some effort, some time in collecting the data. And we are going to release some documents, data, in such survey forms, diba? Survey questionnaires. We are going to buy papers, print materials, and have these materials to be checked for reliability and validity. Characteristics of a quantitative data collection, it should be structured, quantifiable, and objective. The quantitative data should be structured, planned, that indicates what information is to be gathered and how we gather it. In addition to this, the data that we are going to collect will be subjected to statistical analysis that must be gathered in such way that they are quantifiable. And lastly, the data collected must be unbiased by personal feelings or beliefs from the researchers. This means that our data collection or the data that we are going to be collected is on an objective manner. That's why in the quantitative research, the researcher is just the observer and we do not immerse ourselves on the research itself. Unlike in the qualitative data, we need to be within our respondents and we need to make sure that we know how they feel, we know what they feel, so that we are able to come up with a good data from a qualitative data. But unlike here in the quantitative data, it should be unbiased. Whatever answers that the respondents give us, and that's what we are going to interpret. Another characteristic of quantitative data is that it should be accurate, valid, and meaningful. The quantitative data collection plans for quantitative studies ideally that yields accurate, valid, and meaningful data. This goal requires much time and effort to achieve. So, dadaan tayo doon sa proseso ng validity, ng reliability. We are going to check our instrument if it suits, kung pasok ba ito doon sa ating mga respondents. We will not be able to conduct the data collection if the reliability and validity of our instrument is very poor. So there is something to be done before conducting the data collection. There are things that we need to consider in selecting and developing our research instrument or our data collection instrument. The researchers should determine how best to capture each variable in terms of its conceptual definition. So the following are the criteria that may affect the researcher's decision in selecting an instrument. So we have conceptual relevance. Number 2, we have gives high quality of data. Then we have resources, population appropriateness, then availability, and familiarity. Quantitative data collection exists, or if we have an existing instrument that are not suitable for some variables, we may be faced with either adapting an instrument or developing a new one, but it should be our last choice for you as a novice researchers. So the tendency of you as a new researcher or us new researchers, we tend to adapt. Pwede nating hiramin or baguhin ng konti ang meron na o ang existing na instrument or data collection instrument. So halimbawa, tayo ay magpapasurvey. We may already research some research papers or research articles that conducted a similar study, and you may use their instrument as part of your research paper or as part of your study. So that's what we call adaptation. You are going to change some parts of the survey questionnaire that will be suitable for your population or for your respondents. Let's take note that if you adopt an instrument, the next step must be obtaining a written permission from the author before using that adapted instrument. Because if not, you will be fined with plagiarism. So everything that you borrow, everything that you get from other people, you need to have a permission for you to use it. If you're going to make your own research instrument in collecting data, then you don't need anymore to write, of course, a permission because you are the author of that instrument. There are 3 common data collection methods that we may discuss or that we are able to use on collecting our data. Number 1 is observation. Number 2 is survey. And then number 3 is experiment. In the observation, it uses the researcher's sense organs when gathering facts or information about people, things, places, events, and so on. On the other hand, an experiment is a scientific method of collecting data whereby the researcher gives the subjects a sort of treatment or condition, then evaluate the results. We may go back to the research design on what type or what method of data collection we may use when we already collecting our data. Kasi if it doesn't jive or it doesn't align to our research design, then we are just going to repeat our whole chapter 3 or the methodology. The last one is the survey. It is a data gathering technique that makes the researcher obtain facts or information about the subject or object of research through data gathering instruments. There are two examples of survey. The first one is questionnaire. A questionnaire is a paper containing series of questions formulated for an individual and independent answering by several respondents for obtaining statistical information. Let us take note that the survey questionnaire should be answered independently by your respondents or by your participants. On the other hand, another example of a survey is an interview. The difference of this is that you have already a set of questions with a set of given answer. In the previous practical research that we had in the qualitative research, an interview should be an open-ended question. But here, in this quantitative data, the interview here is similar to the questionnaire. You already have the list of questions and you already have the list of answers that your respondents will choose from. So the researcher asks questions, but it is done orally. So the difference between the questionnaire and the interview is that the questionnaire is done independently by the respondents, while the interview is done by asking questions orally by the researcher, and then your respondents will answer it orally as well. So you just take note of their answers as they answer. Here are some types of questions that you may use in the questionnaire and or the interview. We have the dichotomous, which is appropriate for gathering factual information. So it is more on the yes or no question, or you have two given answers already based on basic information. Example, if the gender or the sex of a certain respondent, their age, or their status, civil status, and so on. So that's dichotomous questions. Another is the multiple questions. So there is this example where it has 3 to 7 alternatives. Let's take note that graded alternatives are preferable to dichotomous items for opinion or attitude questions because researchers get more information. Another type of question that you may use on your survey questionnaire or an interview is the cafeteria question. This is a multiple choice type of question in which respondents choose the most closely corresponds to their view. So pipili lang alin sa mga sumusunod ang batay sa inyong opinion. So it is more on opinionated type of question. It should be an open-ended, but since it's a quantitative research, the researcher already gave a possible answer and there's no other answers from the choices given by the research. Then we have the rank order questions. It is a ranking from the best to worst or least important alternative. Note that sometimes misunderstanding is often on this rank order question because participants may be confused on what is number 1 and what is number 5 means too. Sometimes 1 is the positive, 5 is negative, or sometimes 5 is positive, 1 is negative. So it is good that the researcher has a good instruction and has an example to be placed first before the respondents or the participants answers the questionnaire or the interview. Then we have the forced choice. So the participant or the respondent will only choose between two choices, two alternative statements. It's not a true or false, but it's more on opinion, but you only need to choose from either of the two. Then we have the rating. So we judge something along an order dimensions, which are bipolar in nature. So you have 1 or very dissatisfied to 10 as very satisfied. So you may rate 1 to 10, but there's no other descriptions from the middle part. So that's how we do the rating. Then we have the checklist. This has items encompass several questions on topic and require the same response format. So if you're going to notice on this checklist, we have 4 answers. We have many questions, but the answers are similar on each question. Let's note that efficient and easy to understand, but because they are difficult to read orally, they are used more frequently on a survey questionnaire than interviews. Kasi hindi naman nakikita ng ating mga participants or respondents kung ano yung pagpipilian. And then the most common or most widely used scaling technique, we have the Likert scale. It consists of several declarative items that express a viewpoint topic. The respondents are asked to indicate the degree to which they agree or disagree with the opinion expressed by the statement. So you have different statements and then the response, strongly agree, neutral, disagree, strongly disagree. It is similar to a checklist, but you have different choices as a response on agree, disagree, diba? Strongly agree, strongly disagree. Similar also to the rating. In the rating, you only have 1 to 10. There's no indicators on the middle parts. In the checklist, you have to check which is most of your answers, common answers. Here, you may ask different questions based on attitudes. Then you are going to agree or disagree. This most common, as I said, and it's widely used in all research studies. Let's look into the 7 tips for writing a great survey or poll. This according to the surveymonkey.com. Number 1, you focus on asking closed-ended questions. All the examples that have been given are all closed-ended. There are no other possible answers. It's a good survey questionnaire if the questions are always closed-ended. Kasi kung open-ended, there are lots of possible answers, then it will now fall under qualitative research and not anymore quantitative research. Number 2, you keep your survey questions neutral. This is to be the questionnaire or the data collection be unbiased, right? And then number 3, keep a balanced set of answer choices. Hindi po pwedeng lahat negative, hindi po pwedeng lahat positive. It should be on the neutral one. The number of positive alternatives should be equal to the number of negative alternatives on the choices. Number 4, don't ask for two things at once. So halimbawa, you have your question and then you want to justify the answer. Or you have question number 1, you're asking about how long do these students use computer? And then there's another already follow-up question on the same stem of the question that is related to the first question. It should not be. It should be on the next question or the next item. And then number 5, keep your questions different from each other. Minsan kasi halos nagkakapare-parehas lang yung tanong, then you will just come up with the same responses. Right? So make sure that if you want a 10 questions on your survey questionnaire, they are all different. If they are the same, you just cut it out and make your survey questionnaire much simpler and shorter. Then number 6, let most of your questions be optional to answer. Ibig sabihin, may pagkakataon yung ating participants or yung ating respondents na hindi sumagot sa inyong tanong. Hindi natin sila pipilitin na sagutin lahat ng ating mga tanong. And number 7, the last one is do a test drive so that we are able to check the reliability and the validity of the survey questionnaire that you yourself made from scratch. So that's how we can collect data for quantitative research. I hope you learned something. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you again.